the Trump-Putin summit, a dangerous dance of power and peril. In a development that should concern any serious observer of global politics, preparations for a meeting between U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin are reportedly at an advanced stage. The stakes include nuclear arms control, energy dominance, and the ever-bloody conflict in Ukraine. Let's be clear, any discussion of nuclear arms control in 2025 is a high-stakes game. With Russia openly flaunting its nuclear capabilities, pulling out of key arms reduction treaties, and using thinly veiled threats to keep NATO in check, the idea that Putin will enter negotiations in good faith is laughable. Trump, on the other hand, has made no secret of his admiration for strongmen like Putin. He has already expressed skepticism about NATO's role and has, at times, indicated that the US should rethink its obligations under Article 5, the very foundation of NATO's collective defense. If this meeting results in a US-Russia agreement that weakens NATO's nuclear deterrence or limits American military capabilities, Europe should be on high alert. Trump has previously criticized arms control agreements as unfair to the US, but if Putin convinces him that an agreement would be a win, expect Trump to sell it as a grand victory, regardless of whether it actually benefits American security interests. Energy politics, Russia's leverage, America's short-sightedness. Energy will be another major topic at the meeting, and here, Putin holds all the leverage. Russia's economy may be battered by sanctions, but its energy sector remains a lifeline, particularly for countries in Asia and even parts of Europe that still rely on Russian oil and gas. Trump, despite touting energy independence, has long been a supporter of deregulating fossil fuels, cutting environmental restrictions, and cozying up to oil-producing states. If Putin plays his cards right, he could secure concessions that make Russian energy more competitive on the global market, perhaps by persuading Trump to loosen certain sanctions or look the other way on European energy deals that indirectly benefit Moscow. Such an outcome would further entrench Russia's economic power while leaving the West vulnerable to future energy blackmail. If Trump gives Putin even the slightest economic relief under the guise of better relations, he will be playing right into the Kremlin's hands. Ukraine, a pawn on the chessboard. This is where things get truly dangerous. The Ukraine war remains one of the most defining conflicts of the 21st century, and its outcome will determine the balance of power in Europe for decades to come. Putin has long viewed Ukraine as a rightful part of Russia, and his ultimate goal is not just securing occupied territories but potentially forcing the West to accept a Russian-controlled Ukrainian state. Given Trump's well-documented disdain for Ukraine, his past praise of Putin's initial invasion strategy, his attempt to withhold military aid in exchange for political dirt, and his recent criticisms of U.S. funding for Kyiv, it's entirely plausible that he will use this meeting to push for some kind of peace deal that favors Russia. A so-called peace agreement that weakens Ukraine's sovereignty or forces territorial concessions would be nothing short of a victory for Putin. If Trump even hints at U.S. support for such an arrangement, it will signal to Russia and other authoritarian regimes that invasions can be rewarded, not punished. The real question is, what does Trump personally stand to gain from this meeting? Given his transactional nature, it's hard to believe that he is suddenly invested in global stability. Is this about striking a deal that allows him to tout a diplomatic win ahead of a re-election campaign? Is he seeking personal or business benefits behind the scenes? Or does he simply want to reassert his alpha status on the world stage by negotiating with Putin like two mob bosses divvying up turf? Regardless of his motivations, one thing is certain: this meeting has the potential to reshape the global order, and not in a way that benefits the United States or its allies. The world should be watching this meeting with skepticism, not optimism. There is no evidence that Putin is looking for true diplomacy, only opportunities to strengthen his grip on power and exploit Western weaknesses. Trump, for all his bluster about America first, has a disturbing tendency to favor authoritarian leaders over democratic allies. If the outcome of this summit is a weaker NATO, a Ukraine abandoned to Russian control, or an energy deal that boosts Moscow's economy, history will not look kindly upon it. The only question is whether the world will recognize the warning signs before it's too late.